This episode of the Nerf Herder Council is brought to you by Audible. Visit audibletrial.com/NHC for your 30-day trial and a free audiobook download.
Hi, this is Joseph Williams, son of John Williams, and you are watching the Nerf Herder Council.
Why, you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking Nerf herder!
You can't use that word. Only we can use that word.
You're tuned in to the Nerf Herder Council, your source for Star Wars opinion, conversation, and debate. Featuring your hosts, JT.
Stormtrooper armor deflects everything except Orback hooves. They're like a horse version of Thomas the Tank Engine.
AJ.
Yeah, Rebels is a lot like our show, where we think we have a good idea and then it just fails in execution.
On this episode of the Nerf Herder Council, we're remembering our dad and going back on a nostalgia trip into the movie that started it all for us, 1977's Episode 4, A New Hope. This is the Nerf Herder Council. What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Nerf Herder Council. I am your host, JT. We are live on Facebook and YouTube, not only our pages, but those of the Virtual Cantina Network. Real quick, guys, this show may contain some cursing and bad language, and the opinions of the Nerf Herder Council don't necessarily reflect those of the Virtual Cantina Network. We are brought to you by Audible. Go to audibletrial.com/NHC for your 30-day trial and a free audiobook download. Don't forget that you can get customizable Nerf Herder Council swag at shop.nerfherdercouncil.com. If you are watching on YouTube, please don't forget to click that like button, click that subscribe button, and smash that notification bell on both pages so that you are notified every time we go live. Without further ado here, let me bring on my best friend and my brother, my co-host, AJ. What is going on, man? You are rocking a new do. How crazy is that?
Yeah, I like to look stupid sometimes. So, I got sick of growing it out with doing nothing, so I did something about it.
Looks cool, man.
I watched Too Much Shoresy on Hulu, the Letterkenny spinoff, and it's a bunch of hockey dudes sporting something like this. So, I'm like, sure, why not? Chop it down, awesome. Grow it out in the back, look like a douche,
So you're pulling a Van Halen.
Actually, I blame your stepson.
Oh, because he has the haircut and looks great. That's okay. Exactly. That's okay. Like I was saying before we logged on, like I'm growing my hair out this year, so I'm not gonna have the mullet, but I'm definitely gonna be rocking some long hair. So, part of the reason, something we're going to talk about, full disclosure, everybody watching right now, the beginning of the show is going to be a little heavy. But we are going to get into, it's definitely going to be Star Wars-ish, but the beginning of the show is going to be a little bit heavy. So full disclosure, you're going to get the emotional side of the Nerf Herder Council. So some people don't believe that exists, but, so yeah, this is, our first episode that we have done since our father passed unexpectedly about a week and a half ago, almost 2 weeks ago. And it's been a crazy time for AJ and I. It's obviously something that nobody ever wants to go through, and it was kind of expected, but kind of not for us and for my dad. So pulling the curtain back, it's a good thing in many ways. His health was not allowing him to do all the things he wanted to do for a couple of years now. So in a way, it's a good thing. So definitely want to talk about that a little bit and talk about his influence on us where Star Wars is concerned. And that's why we wanted to talk about Episode 4, because that's, the movie that got us into, he took us to see that, took me to see that movie, which then got me into Star Wars, which then subsequently got AJ into it. But I wanted to tell you a quick story. And Cale McLeish, I see you there in the chat. Great to see you, buddy. You of all people will appreciate this. So, so for those of you who don't know, I on weekends I sing in a band about 2 hours from home, and this is actually my 10th year with them. They're just great guys. I love doing it. We're called Brother
years.
Believe Me.
Wow.
Isn't that weird? 10 years, man. Like, I think about that. Where did all this time go? But in any case, so I sing in a band on weekends and summers are busy. And last summer we played in a little town called Pemberville. It's around the Maumee, Toledo area, something like that. And we were playing the show, and this mom came up to the stage with this little girl. She was probably like 4, 5, 6 in that range or something. So I got down and I was like jamming with her. I was singing and she was dancing and, you know, singing along, whatever, doing whatever. And, you know, I didn't think anything of it. You know, anytime there's kids around the stage, I'm always trying to high five them and, you know, get them involved, you know, like I discovered music when I was 8 and it was a weird circumstance. And so I always think, well, you never know what's going to get a kid into something. So why not be a good influence, you know? So, after the show, the mom came up to the stage and, Cale, happy 10 BBM years. Does that mean 22 was your BB8? That is excellent. That's one of the best ones you've had, Cale. Very well played. So she comes up to the stage after the show with her daughter, and she says that her daughter is non-responsive autistic, but she loves music. She said, I've never seen her do that before. She's never interacted with somebody. She's never sang out loud. Loud noises scare her. And she was rocking her little tush off with you. And I was, those sorts of things, like, I mean, it sounds obvious to say, and you know this, AJ and Cale, I mean, you get this, but those are the sorts of things that keep you doing it, you know, keep me doing it. It's, you know, that's a compliment beyond any that you could, you know, ever get. And so 2 weeks ago was actually the night before I found out that my father passed. I got a phone call from someone saying, hey, my name is such and such. I'm from the Pemberville area and want to book you for a show and get some rates or whatever. So I realized today that I never called her back. I was like, damn, like with the whole thing with my dad dying, I just completely forgot. So I called her back about 15 minutes ago, actually. And she was way out of breath and her speech was slurred. I thought, oh no. I'm like, she's messed up on something. Like, this is not going to go well. She's like, yeah, we want to book you for a party. And I'm going, oh boy, I don't know about that. And she proceeds to tell me that she says, I was the lady at the free fair last year. You know, my daughter's autistic, and you know, she was. Do you remember me? I was like, oh my God, yeah, I do remember you. So we're talking for a minute. She says, yeah, I took up a collection. The whole town's coming out for this thing. You know, the pool that you have to be a member at, like they're opening it to the public. You know, I'm paying for a lot of this myself. She then says, I have metastatic stage 4 cancer and I probably won't see Christmas. And also it's my son's senior year. And I said, so this is basically like a party for you and your daughter and a graduation party for your son. And she said, yeah. And so we talked a little bit, and she says, yeah, I'm currently in hospital. Can you hear that beeping? That's my chemo. And then I realized I had heard it the whole time. It was like a consistent electronic beeping in the background. I went, oh my God. So, you know, and she gives me a date and stuff like that. And we're talking a little bit more. And she's, you know, like I said, she's paying for this herself. A lot of this, the town's taking up a collection. They're all coming together to do this party for her. And I told her, I said, you know, I didn't even mention my dad passing, and you know, because it's, you know, neither here nor there to her at this point. And you know, I said, man, oh man, like this is crazy. I'm so sorry for what you're going through. And she said, no. She said, don't even. It's not like that. She says, I have so many blessings. She said, I'm not just saying this, but one of those blessings was seeing you guys play. You know, as soon as we came up with the idea for this party, we knew you guys had to do it because you guys were fantastic. But, you know, I can't tell you what it means to me for my daughter to react to you guys the way that she did. And she still, since then, hasn't done anything like that. So we knew we had to have you guys. And if you want to talk about something that just is like the most humbling and flattering thing while being heartbreaking at the same time, that is definitely it. And, especially like I said, AJ and I lost our father less than 2 weeks ago, and, a lot of heavy stuff has been on my mind. And, you think about, things that you have, and, all sorts of things with your dad, and the great times and the memories and stuff. And you do think about blessings that you have. And then you get a phone call like that from somebody who, she said a couple times, she said, I'm hoping to be alive for the party. And when you hear somebody say something like that, it's just like, and then, she's thinking about us playing music as something good in her life. That is just something so fucking unbelievable that I just wanted to bring it to the show, man. And I know it's heavy, and, we'll get into Star Wars and stuff, but like, I just, especially with, losing my dad, and, I just, the things you think about, like you just realize, people, it's going to be very cliche, but I do think people sometimes take a lot of things for granted, and it takes a big life-changing event to really kind of get them to refocus. And, it's crazy when those sorts of things occur. So just, count your blessings, y'all. I mean, you never know. You just never know. It's crazy. So, crazy story, AJ. That's,
Man.
Yeah. So
to let everybody know, I had not heard that before we went live. Yeah. So this is all news to me. Holy crap, dude. That's a bombshell.
Yeah. It's, and I think to myself,
man,
like, I think to myself, okay, what if we're able to book this for her? Because our summers are really, she wants June, and the date that she chose, we do have a show. So I've got to find an alternate date. We have to get paid to like bring sound or something, but I'm going to run it past the guys. Like, how cheap can we do this? Like, what can we do? Like, can we do it for free? Whatever, there's always a business aspect of it, which is the one part I fucking hate. But, when she's saying, well, I hope to be alive, I'm thinking, what if we get to the show and she's gone? Like, how heavy is that? Like, that's such a horrible thing to think about. But yeah, very humbling, dude. And, kind of leads into, talking about our dad. And, like I said, like he passed away less than 2 weeks ago, and it's been an interesting time for AJ and I. And, we had a really cool kind of little get together on Sunday morning, just he and I, and we went and, we're huge model railroad fans in our family. We grew up around it. My dad was a monstrous train nut. So we would go on Sunday mornings and watch trains, one city over from where we lived. And we would go to this donut shop, which is still there, thank God. It's nice to see some things don't change. And we got donuts and chocolate milk like we did when we were kids. We watched trains. And then we drove to our childhood house. And then from there, I drove this weird backroads route to a golf course my dad and I used to play 20 times a year, and just kind of relive some childhood stuff. Talked about our dad. It was really cool. And, so I got the idea to do this show and talk about episode 4 because, our dad gave us a ton of great stuff that, he was a huge influence on us, especially I think myself. And, this show wouldn't exist. And a major part of AJ's and I, like whatever fuck the grammar. Our relationship.
Close enough. Keep going.
Yeah. the Germans, forget it. He's rolling. But yeah, I mean, a major part of our relationship, is Star Wars. And it's the first thing that really brought us together as friends, beyond brothers. And it's all because my dad, took me to see episode 4 in 1980. I was 4 years old, and I saw the movie 1.5 times. I've told the story many times on the show. Very brief version. Dad misread the movie time, so when he and my mom and I got to the theater, they told him like, oh yeah, the movie already started, but you can go watch the rest of it and then stay for the part you missed. So I was like, okay, and so we walked in during the garbage compactor scene, watched the movie. Walked outside to the lobby, hung out for a half hour until they started seating the next showing, walked back in, watched the movie. And then we get to the garbage compactor scene. Dad stands up, is like, okay, let's go. And I'm grabbed him. No, we're not going anywhere. So I saw episode 4 1.5 times. And I became a monstrous nerd for it. So like a month or two later, when Empire officially came out, he took me to see that. And then I started getting the toys and the records and the books. And of course, in 1983, when I'm 7 and AJ's 4, he started getting really into Star Wars without ever having seen it because of how crazy I was for it. But he had heard the records and played with the toys and stuff.
Toys.
So,
Mhm.
yeah. So, because of my dad exposing me to Star Wars, and then just, making sure that I saw Empire and Jedi in the theater, AJ got into it and it was just off and running from there. So wanted to talk a little bit about that and kind of revisit this movie because, it's very, it's personal to a lot of people because it's the first one they saw, but I'm just kind of waxing poetic a little bit about it and being nostalgic lately because, having lost our dad recently. So, that's my first memory of Star Wars, AJ. And it's actually one of my 3 earliest memories of life itself. So, I only have 2 other things that I remember besides that. One is like being in the hospital when you were born and mom or dad telling me that's your little brother, like, oh, what the heck? Okay. And then the other one is holding you like a few weeks later at our grandparents' house and someone telling me that's your little brother. You got to protect him. And boy, did they screw up telling me that because you know how overprotective I am of you. So
dude,
anyway.
I was 27 years old moving to Florida for college. And 27, I moved away for college.
Yeah.
And you said that exact line to me many, many times. You're my baby brother. I'm supposed to protect you. I'm like, I'm a 27-year-old man. God damn it.
Yeah. I'm terrible with it. Yeah. I'm terrible with it.
Yeah. You never outgrow it. It's cool.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's my earliest memory of Star Wars. So what is your earliest memory of Star Wars? And then, first impressions of episode 4, and then I'll give my first impressions of the actual movie.
Well, episode 4 is an interesting one for me because I didn't see Star Wars until Return of the Jedi. At least that was my first movie in a theater that I can recall. We might have seen E.T. I'm not sure. But yeah, Return of the Jedi was my first theatrical experience. I might have gone to Empire. I don't know. I mean, I would have been 1 year old at that point. Like exactly 1 year old. Yeah. Fun bit of family history. I'm actually not the third. I'm actually the 4th child. The third one didn't make it out the gate. So I think it's because the toys had not been released yet for A New Hope. So whoever he or she would have been was like, well, this world ain't ready. So, our parents being the savvy sci-fi nerds that they are, they waited to try it for another one until they knew there was a toy line. And then the world was ready for me. So as you can see, I do like to collect. So, kind of makes sense there. Oh, I confused my camera with the focus. See, I shouldn't make jokes. No, but so my first memory, it'll come back, whatever. My first memory of A New Hope, actually, I think we probably had it on VHS. It's got to be VHS because I don't know how else I would have seen it.
No shit.
Yeah, my camera's really hosed. Let me fix this. You're going solo for a second.
Okay. So, man, VHS, I thought it was earlier than that. That's crazy. I'm trying to, it would have been the first release. It would have been the first release of the VHSs, obviously. So,
yeah, that would have been rented at probably Michelle's Video, I think it was.
Oh my God, I forgot. I was trying to think of the name of that place and I couldn't. Now, thank you. There we go.
Video stores, kids. They used to exist.
It's now a Subway. Wah, 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 wah. So,
well, if Subway is anything like it is for you as it is for me, then you really only rent that too. So,
well played. Now that's going to be the Arby's I had for dinner. That's a rental for sure. Boy, that shit, quick sidebar. That shit dries you out, man. I did not realize the sodium in it until I was working afterwards and I'm still dried out. I'm like, what the hell's in it? Did I eat a salt lick or something? So anyways, all right. So
focusing on this movie. Yeah,
I know. Oh, okay. So your first exposure was on VHS. So basically you had only seen Jedi until the VHSs came out. We rented them. So that would have been A New Hope and Empire then. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so
yeah, and even the toys, like you had the episode 4 toys. The thing I remember most about Heaven as a kid, outside of the Ewok Village, was those little micro play sets that were just like a plastic tray of like the shield generator on Hoth, and those little teeny tiny figures that were like half an inch tall. Like they were apparently choking hazards weren't a thing back then, because I could have swallowed the entire battalion. Probably safely, actually.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, it's not a choking hazard because it wasn't chokeable.
Yeah.
There was no way to do that.
Yeah, those things were tiny. And there was one black one. They had a little Vader that was black. Everybody else was white.
Yeah, I remember Dad could never. He's like, "What the hell are those things? How do I tell those apart?" I'm like, "Duh, this is a stormtrooper. This is a snow trooper. Like, don't you know anything, Dad?"
Yeah.
Like, man, how can you not tell this? He's like, "Whatever." So
it's funny because he always got annoyed. He got annoyed from the moment we launched this show. Like, what is with you idiots? And talking Star Wars all the time. And we're like, it's your fault, Dad. You took JT to the movie. He got me into it, and now here we are. So if you don't like it, you got only yourself to blame. You have done that yourself.
You have done that yourself. I just love the fact that he had never heard the show, and the first time he ever heard it was like a week before he passed, and it pissed him off because we were cursing.
I randomly tuned. So again, behind the curtain a little bit. After I publish the audio for the show, I always go back and just like spot check it through just to make sure that everything sounds good. Make sure my audio levels were good. Anything that needs to be fixed for next time. So I was picking my dad up to run some errands, and I had it on in the car. So he gets in the car, and I said, "Oh, it's just our podcast. I'll turn it off. I'll turn it on, some classical music or something for you." He goes, "No. I've never heard it before. Let's keep it going." I was like, okay. So I keep it going, but it was at the moment where JT was ranting about Purgles. So he instantly drops an F-bomb, and he's shouting at the top of his lungs. And put it to you this way, audience. It was a major issue in the family the first time anyone showed up with a tattoo or a piercing, or anyone who wasn't in the family showed up with a tattoo or a piercing. Like even JT's bandmates back when he started into music, and guys are coming over the house and they've got ink or piercings or something, and my dad could not handle it. He couldn't handle long hair on men. He was conservative in his outlook on most things. So so here's his son dropping F-bombs and yelling, and then I respond with an F-bomb. So he was instantly disappointed in both of us. That's typical, of course.
Look at Kale. Wait, it's Vader and it's not a choking hazard? Man, they really nerfed him for the toy line. Kale's on fire tonight, man.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Our dad was quite a curmudgeon. So things like that.
Like when you came back with your Star Wars tattoos from Celebration, and he was mad that he had given us money to spend.
So yeah, all right. So let me see if I can get these on camera. So I have Star Wars tattooed on my forearms. Hold on, let me see if I can get this on camera here. So that was awesome for our audio viewers. But anyway, So I got those at Celebration 5. Spencer Jowitz, long-haired freaky people need not apply. Yep, that was my dad. But yeah, so Celebration 5 was the first celebration we attended, and that was the first time they did the tattoo alley, at least to my knowledge. And one of my band buddies went, a guy I played in a band with for years, and he's got a bunch of tats. He runs a music studio and stuff, and he's got Star Wars tattooed across his knuckles. And I was like, man, I want to get a Star Wars tattoo. I only have a few tattoos, and they're coverable. But I was like, I want something cool. Like I just want to be like, oh, I got Han Solo on my arm. Like, I wanted it to be unique. And I was walking through and I couldn't think of anything for weeks beforehand. So then I'm like, all right, I'm not getting a tattoo because I can't figure something out. I'm not just going to get something to get it. I want it to really be important. So we're walking through the tattoo alley on the first day, and I'm walking and I'm getting mad. I'm like, God damn it, I want a tattoo. And I looked at him like, but I want something cool. Like you can go like Star Wars with your hands. I want to be like, I went to cross my arms over my chest, be like Star Wars. And I looked down, I was like, my forearms, hell yeah, there it is. So I walked up to the first tattoo guy on the left, and I said, how much would it cost me to get you to put the Star Wars logo on my forearms? He's like, just the outline. And he said, yeah. He's like, with a tip, $120. Be back here in 6 hours. I said, 160. I'll be back in 4. He says, okay. So whatever.
You should have said, I'll pay you $2,000 now and 15 when we get to Alderaan.
I wanted to, but I figured it was a little too obvious. But so I paid $160. But the story here is that my dad had given us each $100 to spend at the convention. Found out where we were going. He's like, have a blast. Here's $100 each. Well, I knew my dad would throw a goddamn conniption fit if I told him I spent your money on a tattoo. So I had my dad's cash in my wallet. So I went to the ATM at the convention center and I took out $160 of my own money so that I could say to him, I used my own money, not your 100. So when I get back, he had seen the tattoos on Facebook and he calls me and he is screaming at me damn near. He is so goddamn mad. I can't believe I gave you $100 and you spent it on a goddamn tattoo. I'm like, I didn't, Dad. I told him I went to the ATM and got my own money out. Well, he was having none of it. So he was forever pissed because he thought I blew his money on a tattoo. So so yeah, that was kind of funny. So, all right. So let's get on track here with the movie. So Jeff Caffrey, good to see me. It says tats for tots. Spencer Jowitz, awesome to see you, bro. He says, I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. That is a very old reference. Nice. So what were your first impressions of episode 4 the first time you saw it?
The first time I saw it, oh man, it's hard enough to give you first impressions of this last time I saw it. We're the same age as Star Wars. Older, in fact.
Right.
So first impressions, man, like I said, my first impressions, I don't really remember, to be honest with you. I'd love to come up with some great story of nostalgia, but really the first time that this movie really blew it, it was basically, put it this way. I already had so much, I was so steeped in Star Wars background already because of the toys and your fandom and everything, that by the time I saw the original movie, it was just it felt like I'd already seen it before because I'd heard about it. And I think, did we have an audio recording of it or something?
No,
one of those old 33 records or something.
I see. One of my favorite Star Wars possessions, if not my favorite, was one of those records, but it was of Empire. So I don't remember if I had A New Hope and Jedi the same way. I may have had A New Hope, but I don't. But
by the time I would have seen A New Hope, I would have seen Empire and Jedi already. So it wasn't mind blowing. It was just more Star Wars at that point, which is weird because, of course, it was the one that started it all. But for me, I didn't see them in chronological order. So it consider this a prequel, the original prequel.
Right. Yeah. I see for me.
And they were always on TV growing up. I remember that.
Okay. Jeff Caffrey says the radio dramas. No, it wasn't those, Jeff. It was a kid's book. It was pictures. It was a picture book. And then the record you'd play along and then it'd be turn the page for the next, whatever, kind of, one of those types of things. Joseph Wren, always good to see you, man. He says, Star Wars again? Of course. Welcome to the NHC. Hope you guys are doing awesome. We're doing as awesome as we can, dude. Appreciate it. And I owe you a phone call from yesterday, so I am not avoiding you. Our cousin is too great to see you, cuz. Love you. He says, I still owe your Uncle Tom, our cousin's dad, I still owe your Uncle Tom $280 before adjustment for inflation for the THX Laserdisc trilogy I begged him to buy.
That thing was $280 back then?
Laserdiscs were expensive, dude.
God.
Yeah. But yeah, my first impressions of episode 4, and again, I saw it when I was 4 years old. That movie, whatever it was trying to do to suck kids in, every single bit of it worked on me. Because I remember, they were in the garbage compactor. I was like, what the hell are they wearing? Whatever. And they get out and then, they're running in the hallway and I see stormtroopers. I'm like, what the hell are those? And then it shows Darth Vader. I'm like, who the hell is that guy? And it was just, oh my God, they're obviously bad. And then the Millennium Falcon's flying around kicking ass. I was like, Han Solo running at the bad guys. I was like, okay, I mean, all of it was blowing my mind, but I very vividly remember thinking the Millennium Falcon was the coolest damn thing I had ever seen. It never like registered with me that Luke was the one that saved the day because he blew up the Death Star. In my little kid mind, it was no, Han Solo and the Millennium Falcon saved the day because he had to shoot Vader and the other dudes in order to get Luke to have a clean shot. So to me, it wasn't a Luke story; it was a Han Solo story from from the get go. You know, and then when I saw it from the beginning and saw it as a whole, you know, when we saw it the full way through after that intermission, you know, I was just absolutely enthralled. I'm like, this is like super colorful. Like, and, you know, again, it was the first time I'd ever even been to a movie theater too. So you're talking about every sensory experience that you can have all at once. And I'm 4 years old doing it with Star Wars. So there's like laser battles and, you know, there's these stormtroopers and Darth Vader and, you know, lightsabers and all this kind of stuff. And you're just like aliens everywhere and you're
robots.
Going, yeah, I was just blown away. And it was something that just absolutely hooked me. And I don't remember how I found out about there being more movies, but you know, Dad must have told me like, hey, there's another one of these coming, you know, in a month or I was like, what the hell? Well, then I do remember thinking, okay, we saw Empire and I'm like, okay, so in a couple months, there's going to be another one. He's like, no, I'm like, what are you talking about? So we had to wait. And then of course, when I found out the third one was coming out, I, you know, almost shit my pants. I was so excited. And, you know, I was telling you like, oh, we're going to the movies. We're going to go see Star Wars. Like, but that imprint was on me from the get-go. And I've said many times on the show that there are two bastions of cool in my life that have never, ever changed. Nothing, you know, I discovered one when I was 4 and one when I was 8. I'll be 48 on February 26th this year. So basically for 40 and 44 years, nothing has usurped these two things. First one is Eddie Van Halen and the Frankenstrat. And the other one is when I was 4 years old, Han Solo and the Millennium Falcon. So it was, you know, it was there from the start for me. So
yeah, and for me, a world without Star Wars is like explaining to anyone under driving age in the U.S. a world without iPhone. It's always been there.
Yeah,
I can't imagine life before it.
And
like,
that's
what
really,
must it have been like to see this for the first time when it was an unproven property and it was just, well, I hope this works. Like, my God, it just fits in life, period, to where I can't imagine how boring pop culture must have been before this came out.
Yeah. Well, and especially for us, like, I mean, you saw your first Star Wars movie when you were 4. You know, I saw my first Star Wars movie when I was 4. I mean, that's formative stuff, dude. Like, it's the very first thing we see pretty much. And you're finally able to kind of comprehend what you're watching. It's not just a bunch of blobs and shapes and sounds and stuff. Like, you know what people are saying, you know, you understand what's happening. And it's just crazy. So, you know, a few comments here. David O'Neill, good to see you, man. Thanks for tuning in. He says, yes, I came to Star Wars through the toys before I saw A New Hope. Awesome. Dude, guys, man, I would love to have some of those. I swear to God. Jeff Caffrey says, I had to wait for Star Wars toys like a chump does in the late 70s. Do you ever think about that? Like all the stuff, like, and this is a question not just for you, AJ, but for the chat and everybody. You know, did you guys ever think about that? Like if you had a time machine, if you could go back and steal your own toys from yourself, like at Christmas, like, you know, you're opening these toys and you just run in the room, like, I'll take that. And you just run and jump back in the time machine. And now all of a sudden you're holding like an original 1977 Kenobi. You know, like you didn't know you had like a double telescoping version as a kid. You had no idea. And if you look back and you think about it, you might have ripped off like $30,000 worth of plastic that was about the size of your, you know, 1/10 of your pinky nail. I think about that all the time. So
I'm proud of the fact that none of our stuff would be worth a damn these days because we played with that stuff till it was worthless. Yes. And that's exactly what you should do.
Yep. Beat the hell out of it, man. Jeff Caffrey, I would so steal from myself. I would do it too, man. David O'Neill says, going to a movie then was a much bigger deal. It was an experience. Yeah, I would agree. Thankfully, David, like I still get as excited to be in a movie theater now as I did back then. That's something that's never left me. It's like anytime there's a movie that comes, especially an action movie, I have to see it in the theater at least once.
As annoying as it is to to have to wait in line. I do remember even when the special editions came out, and there was no apps or assigned seating, so you still had to line up for the midnight release, and you better get there by 10:30 or else you're not going to get a seat that's worth a damn. And as much as that sucked overall for the time it took, it was also fantastic because the anticipation was unreal. It wasn't like, okay, well, the show time's at 7:45, so let's all meet outside the theater at 7:40 and we'll go to E7, 8, 9, and 10 and just get our seats. You know, the whole build-up, the whole anticipation was insane. Loved it.
That was like our experience for episode 3. Like, I mean, we didn't have assigned seating, so it was like, you know, let's get there, and we got to get our ass in the theater to get, like, you know, just make sure that we are in that seat, in a good seat for this movie. Like, I mean, it's cool, man. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's something to be said about that. I completely agree with you. Like the nostalgia of it all, you know, and as much as it sucks, you know, having 3 years between movies, there's also something cool about it. You know, it's kind of like, you know, you and I are huge wrestling fans. It was always kind of cool when there was only WrestleMania. And if they added SummerSlam, okay, but so it was like, you know, especially when there's only WrestleMania, you were waiting an entire year. So there was this huge buildup to the main event. Like, you know, you're watching Saturday night's main event, like, oh my God, like Hulk Hogan and Macho Man split up. Like, oh no, like, you know, and you know, that stuff is cool. Like when you get to build that up, and then, you know, now that there's like a movie every year or whatever, and it's kind of like, it's still awesome, but that anticipation kind of adds to the enjoyment, I think. So
movie theaters had to be kind of pooping themselves a little bit as this movie took off too, because stereo sound was a big deal. Like that was kind of mind blowing. They had to do a mono mix of this thing because that was the sound systems that a lot of theaters had at the time. Yeah, even getting to 2 channels of audio was like, holy crap, this is a high def experience. Now we've got like 10. We got Dolby Atmos and, you know, crazy digital audio and everything, and THX and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, Lucas has been on record as saying that when it was released in theaters, he was still working on an audio mix. So he was still working on it after it was already put in theaters. So that's just amazing to me. So, you know, well, I mean, okay, so let's dig into the movie a little bit itself. And first and foremost, I want to say that I did an experiment. Okay, so I own the Harmy editions, which for those of you who don't know what that is, they're despecialized. It's basically like if you watched the original cuts in 1977, in 1980, and 1983, but with like 2023 Blu-ray quality, everything cleaned up, audio, video, everything, but it's just, you know, none of the extra crap. So I watched the Harmy edition first, and then I watched the version that is on, I almost said version, the version that is on Disney Plus. And I'm going to double down on what I've said before. I think that people that say that the special editions are, you know, a bastardization and that they suck and they're shitty and they ruin Star Wars, like, no, it does not. The story is exactly the same. And in a lot of parts, it actually looks cooler. The special editions, like having the extra stuff, is pretty cool. And to me, it didn't even really register as that different. I mean, a couple times the picture looked more empty. I would say the only thing that it did is, you know, and I want to get to this point about the film in general in a minute, but not having all that extra stuff made it a little more intimate. And it was a little more raw, which is a cool way to watch the movie, but it didn't change anything. The one thing I did forget, there have been so many different versions of the Han Greedo scene that I completely forgot that in the original, Greedo doesn't even shoot. Han just blows them away. And so I would also like to say that to people who say that, you know, the way that Lucas redid it ruins Han's character, I'm doubling down on what I've said before, which is I think you are wrong. It doesn't do anything to me. Han Solo's still a badass. He still kicks ass. He's a scoundrel. I don't care if there's an extra laser blast in there. I don't care if there's a McClunky in there. I don't care. So I want to get that out of the way.
I just a couple days ago, Star Wars Explained posted a video. It was 40 questions answered about Star Wars: A New Hope, and he was talking about the whole Han scene and whether it matters and whatnot. And I like his interpretation. His interpretation is that this is like a fairy tale. It starts with a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So there's this idea that it's a legend being told, and you have, as a result of who's telling it, which version of the story you get. So to your point, Han Solo as a character doesn't really change based on who shot first. So having all those different versions is kind of like hearing the story from a different narrator. It happened. We know that Han walked into the cantina and met with Greedo there, and only Han walked out and Greedo did not. What happened in there is all up to storyteller's discretion. So I think it's fine whichever way it goes, because the story points are covered and the details don't matter.
Yeah. I mean, and the special edition doesn't change the story. And, it's coming up in the chat, of course. Jeff Caffrey says, McClunky. David O'Neill says, okay, Han walking over Jabba's tail is pushing it a little. Our cousin Chris, he says, the Jabba scene blows. Yeah, that one, yep. I'll give you guys. It's kind of pointless. I mean, I get that they're giving context. It doesn't annoy me like it does most people, because it's not changing anything. I see it from both sides. I can see why people get annoyed. Me personally, I'm like, okay, it's just 30 extra seconds. It's explaining why why Jabba's got a hair up his ass for Han Solo. Okay. I don't think it's necessary, but it didn't take away anything for me personally. But I mean, if people are upset with it, I think
it does take it away from Jedi. I think it does take something away from Jedi. Like seeing Jabba for the first time in Jedi is a jaw-dropping moment. And if you've already seen him in A New Hope, it's just like, oh, that guy again. Okay. Yeah. And then people get confused because Greedo is standing in the background, or at least another Rodian in the exact same clothing. In fact, there's two of them in the exact same clothing in the background.
Well, they didn't have yellow and red ones and stuff at that point. They hadn't branched out yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the original idea there was that they all kind of looked the same and dressed the same, because, like I said, there's two of them in the background in the same shot. So it's not just like, oh, yeah, they didn't just like let Greedo live through that scene like a continuity error. Like there was multiple of them that looked identical. I don't know, maybe they were triplets or something.
Yeah, right. Greedo was triplets. What would those names be? Greedo, Nito, and Speedo. There we go.
Well, they didn't even have lightsabers cauterizing wounds at that point. So Greedo, Nito, and Bleedo.
I like it. Okay.
Do we need another shirt?
We do. We do. We got Chewbacca's family, and now we're gonna have Greedo, Nito, and Speedo, the Rodian triplets. There we go. Yeah, and okay. Yeah, I mean, John Golgano, nice to see you, buddy. He says, I didn't hate the scene. I hated that Jabba was a completely different color than in Jedi. And Jeff Caffrey, he says, Jabba's design was not good in those scenes. Oh, I'm getting to it, AJ. Yeah, can someone please explain to me why, with all the incredible digital technology at their disposal, they were never able to get the damn Jabba the Hutt correct? He doesn't look right. He doesn't sound right. How can you not recreate that thing? And
it's kind of impressive, isn't it?
Spencer is bringing up another name, but this is their Italian cousin. So the Italian cousin of Greedo, Nito, and Bleedo is, of course, Guido. Oh my god! Look, Kale McLeish. You know what also could be cool? Millennium Falcon outline done in the Van Halen colors. Could call it Han Halen. Only Lando Calrissian would call it Han Halen. Jeff Caffrey, we need all the shirts. Yes, we do need all the AJ, you got to get on this.
I'm going to be busy.
We're going to have a whole line of the dumbest shirts imaginable. But yeah, so that having been said, in rewatching the film, and I hadn't watched it in a while, I know you said that was the same thing for you. This to me is, it struck me how intimate this one is. I tried to think about this, and in all of the other movies, at least in the Skywalker saga, it's like they all have something to do with this greater conflict. there's always the rebellion versus the empire or something, or first order versus resistance, all that kind of stuff. There's the whole political aspect of the prequels. And in this one, it's just, okay, we got to rescue the princess and get the hell out of there. Oh, we have to blow up the Death Star. It's like a self-contained story. And I get it. He didn't know if there was going to be sequels or whatever. It's the first third of a story. But that's what intrigues me, is that, he says that he had this big long story and just chopped it into 3 parts. And this was the first part. And it's like, how is this one so much smaller than the other 2? Like, there's none of that, world, like galaxy shaping stuff that you come to find in the subsequent movies.
I do like how you put it as intimate, because I got the same impression when I was watching it. It was actually very refreshing to just watch a very stripped down kind of story. It was just basic and simple. There weren't nuances of the backstory of the characters or the larger galaxy, or who is the emperor. None of that stuff. Like, the emperor's barely even mentioned. It was just what was on the screen was all that existed, and that's all you needed to know. There's nothing else required to make sense of this movie, and that's fantastic. Yeah. That's really cool.
I think the strengths of the movie stand out when you go back and what our cousin says. Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru's crispy corpses were intimate. It's the high watermark for stormtrooper aim and destruction. Yeah, Liberty Timmons, excuse me. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. A New Hope has so much room to breathe. It holds your attention, but you don't feel rushed through the world building. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because, like, going back and watching this movie again after not having seen it for a while, you kind of forget how this is. Like, how do I phrase this? I'll try to make an analogy here. Hopefully this makes sense to everybody. When I talk about Metallica, my favorite record by far is And Justice for All. And I know most people's Master of Puppets, but the way that I describe And Justice for All is that, when you think about Metallica and the adjectives people use to describe Metallica, And Justice for All of those adjectives apply to that album. And not all of them apply to, something like Kill 'Em All or Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, whatever. But, Beth Merrick, what? Garage Days. All right, we talking Garage Days, the original, or Garage Inc., the revisited? Gotta clarify there, Beth. But,
score some brain surgery. I'll play it right now if you want.
I used to warm up with that when I was playing bass. All right, Beth clarified. OG. Good answer, Beth. Good answer. But, and I think with A New Hope, all of the adjectives that you use to describe Star Wars all come from. Now she's making a bread fan reference. Where's Fluffy? That's technically not the garage. That would be Garage Inc. Or it is also a B-side of, I believe, Eye of the Beholder. So there you go. Now we're getting into Metallica talk. God damn it. Another thing my dad hated. Anyway,
I bought you the single that had that as the B-side from Japan. I forget what that was. It was Bread Fan. There was a live version of For Whom the Bell Tolls, and I want to say it was Eye of the Beholder, but in any case, neither here nor there. A New Hope is, all the adjectives that we come to use for Star Wars. Not only do they describe A New Hope, but they really honestly do start there. And I know that sounds stupid to say, it comes from the first movie, but that's not always the case. You know what I mean? Like, when you have a franchise, it's not always the first movie, everything about it comes from there. Like, no, like some of them get better as they go. And you come to define those franchises based on things that happen later, or, character traits of the films. And in watching this, that's not the case with Star Wars. Everything that we love about Star Wars, the reasons that, fans, no matter when you come into Star Wars, the reason people come into this franchise and love it, it is all there in A New Hope. And it is the template for all of it.
And that was amazing to see. I mean, did you get that vibe off of it? Because I was watching this going, like, first of all, the nostalgia hits me every time. But then more than anything, like I say, it's just, this is Star Wars to me. You know, everything.
It's the purest, most distilled version possible. And that's exactly true. Beth had another comment up above here. I'm going to it here. I noticed this as well. So special effects, old schools, and art. CGI can't really fully trick the eye. It's too crisp. Human era makes the movie classic. Very true. But another thing I noticed is, like, I love, as much as the unspecial editions are the original, one thing I love about the cleanup is that you do see some more of those imperfections. It's like when CDs first came out and you'd get like classic rock albums like Led Zeppelin, and it would say like, hey, you're going to hear some stuff in here that you've never heard before. Yeah. It was always there. The quality just wasn't good enough to expose it. And watching this, like just today, I was looking at like the R2 model, for example, and you know, some of the panels are misaligned. Everything's very much handmade. You can see brush strokes on a chassis, stuff like that. And I noticed, like, with the Vader costume and the Stormtrooper costume, those are all like molded plastic. So they're smooth, they're precise, they're, you know, perfect, for lack of a better term. Even though they're wildly not perfect, they're very asymmetrical because they were all made by hand. Compare that to everything the good guys have. You know, the droids are dirty. The R2 chassis itself, like I said, has brush marks on it, and like stuff doesn't quite line up, even though it's supposed to be a robot manufactured on an assembly line. They're wearing like clothing instead of hard formed plastic armor, so they're a little like rumpled and rough around the edges. And it just gives you that sense, like even through the visual language, that you've got this giant machine over here with the Empire, and then you've got this ragtag bunch over here that's just doing their best to hang on. So even the parts that shouldn't be ragtag, like the droids, they fit with the good guy side just by their visual aesthetic. It's incredible. And it's all you need to know. Like every bit of understanding and background of the entire universe is right here in this movie. And I love that. I love that you don't need to know anything about it besides just what your eyeballs and your ears tell you, and you get the whole story. George was a genius for starting with this chapter specifically, because it gave enough hints to say that there's stuff you haven't seen prior to this, and also there's so many more places we can go from here. Just absolutely perfect starting point.
I completely agree. And I always wonder, you know, was it, especially with stuff like you know, the little nuggets, like, oh, you know, I fought in the Clone Wars, same as your father. Like, I always wonder, because there's always multiple versions of what, you know, he'll say, he'll give multiple versions of, you know, the origin of these things. And I always wonder, like, was he thinking like, okay, what if there was this huge universe? There's all these things I could explain. Like, was he just kind of like playing in his own toy box in his head and just, but making one movie thinking nothing's ever going to come of it? Like that has always fascinated me. So
the other thing that's fascinating is with all the drafts and revisions that this story went through, it's amazing that he stopped at just like the perfect point. You know, he could have kept revising it and maybe ruined it as a result. But there was a lot of those earlier drafts that really didn't make sense or had just not the right vibe to them at all. And then he knew what to remove and what to refine to arrive at this. And if it wasn't this exact thing, this exact story, who knows how the rest of the franchise would have played out.
Yeah. The Harmy edition that I have has a bunch of the deleted scenes in there that never got close to the screen. And holy crap. Like it's awesome because, like, you know, in Empire of Dreams, Paul Hirsch says, you know, that basically what we see on the screen is anything that's usable, because anything you don't see was a mess. And you can totally see why that is, because some of these deleted scenes are just, you know, like, I mean, you know,
he keeps it tight.
Well, even movie, story stuff, so, it doesn't make a damn bit of difference. It's cut out is brilliant.
Right. Like, I know I'm on record on the show as saying that this movie is slow. And when we did a chronological watch, when you go from the sheer chaos of episode 3 and its climax and conclusion, and then you jump into episode 4, it is like hitting a massive speed bump. It's like going into a school zone off of a freeway. But as its own standalone thing, like, this movie starts off and it just rips. Like you get the ships flying in, the bombastic soundtrack going on. It doesn't slow down until the droids are off in the desert, really. But up until that point, like everything's just moving. And if you know nothing about the universe, as no one did when this came out, and that's like your first impression, holy crap, it's like a shot of adrenaline from the first frame. It's incredible.
Yeah, see, I always think about that when I watch this movie or think about this, because like I just said, I hadn't watched it in a while. You know, you saying that it's slow. And I guess I understand that, but I've never seen it as slow. I mean, there's always something happening. You know, it's like there's something going on. It's, you know, it starts out with a space battle, and then the droids are, you know, walking in the desert, but then the Jawas catch them, like, oh God, what the hell's going to happen? You know, and then they lose R2, and it's like, oh, there's sand people. Like, you know, there's always something happening. There, you know, it's kinetic. It may not be like huge and, you know, giant lightsaber battles and space battles the whole damn time or anything like that, but I don't think it's slow. I think it actually is perfectly paced, and I just don't have a problem with that. So that's I was wondering about that when I rewatched it for this episode, and I was like trying to like get into your headspace, and I just couldn't, man. For me, I was like, dude, I think
it's only slow compared to the other movies. On its own, it's perfectly paced, like you said. It's just when you're running it through as one chapter 4 of a 9 episode saga, it is a sharp departure from especially its previous chapter.
Man, I don't know. Maybe it's because I know how everything plays out that because I've done the marathon thing, like, and I don't see it as that. To me, it's just another part of the story.
It's a lot tighter than it could have been. To your point about the deleted scenes, like, you know, the Biggs stuff on Tatooine and Cammy and Fixer and all that stuff. Like, it was completely unnecessary. I'm so glad. I only know that because of the top Star Wars trading card app.
Yeah.
That's not even a Lego thing. But yeah, those scenes exist, and that's why those two people showed up in the Book of Boba Fett. That was an incredible deep cut.
Yes.
But utterly meant nothing. So, yeah, George definitely had the presence of mind to cut out the fat.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because they put it back into the radio drama. So I actually have the radio drama for episode 4 on CD, which is a really interesting listen. And they do put that back in. It's like,
would be. I need that.
Yeah, you can borrow it. It's on my Star Wars collectibles shelf, where I don't have a lot of collectibles, but I just put the stuff that's really important to me, and that's one of them because it was a crazy find. Liberty Timmons says each Star Wars movie after this one reinforces A New Hope and makes the original movie better. By the way, I still don't forgive y'all for ruining Peridia for me. Sorry about that. Sometimes our stupidity can ruin things. We apologize in advance. That should be another like, you know, parental advisory thing at the beginning of the show. John Golgano, he says it is a little slower than the rest, but that's because he had to take time to introduce everyone to that world and those characters. I definitely agree with that. Beth Merrick says our brains are so hardwired now with current technology, so old 70s and 80s movies seem slow, but slow makes good plot production. It captures the reader or watcher. Yeah, I would agree with you, Beth. That's
one of the knocks against Blade Runner, and I vehemently disagree. Like, there's not a whole lot happening, but that just builds atmosphere.
Yeah, that movie's nothing but atmosphere. I mean, dude, and there's a movie I would like to talk about, that and its sequel, because the sequel, even though it's like twice the length of the original or whatever the hell it is, still amazing. I love the sequel.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. So yeah.
Cool.
David O'Neill says, I don't listen to radio, so I don't get overplay. I just play it when I play it, which is often. Or it's just played when I play it, which is often. Nice. Yeah, I just, like I said, I don't think it's slow. One of the other things that I really liked about it is that it is a very typical classic good guy versus bad guy story, but it never feels cheesy. and it never. I mean, it veers off the kind of straight path at times. You know what I mean? It's, you've got, Han Solo, like, okay, is he a good guy or a bad guy type of vibe off of him? He's butting heads with Princess Leia, and it's cool. I mean, it's like, yeah, I mean, the good guys and stuff like that. But then you got Ben Kenobi, who, all of a sudden, like, this guy who looks like he's supposed to be the main teacher dude, and the smartest guy in the room, he gets murdered halfway through the movie, and you're like, well, what the hell is that? So, just the whole delivery of it, like, it's just so well put together.
That's one of the crazy things is except for Luke watching Vader cut down Obi-Wan, the real heroes of the movie, Luke and Han and Chewie, never actually come face to face with Vader.
Yeah,
like the hero and the villain, the heroes and the villain don't actually square off.
Yeah, it's and even the fight, like the Obi-Wan Vader fight, it's not like a typical, okay, they're in this crazy combat and then one of them gets the upper hand and the other guy dies. It's like he sacrifices himself. And you're going, well, what the hell is that? Like, what is this guy doing? So you've got that intrigue of going, why did he do that? And then,
he's like right there as a Force ghost immediately, which was impressive, actually. I still never really got that line. I'm still not sure if I'm down with the line of like, if you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. I guess he's talking about martyrdom because, I mean, as a kid, I remember watching it, I'm like, what, you're a ghost? Like that's your more powerful than you could possibly imagine form? Like I thought you were going to turn into some like Mortal Kombat dragon or something where you're just like biting the heads off of people and are like bulletproof or something. Like,
right.
I was really waiting for something more than just like, oh, I can speak to people even though I'm dead. Right. Okay. Ooh, spooky ghost.
Yeah. What do you mean you're going to be more powerful? You used to be a goddamn ghost. I know how this goes. Yeah, but it's powerful. It's like more powerful than you because like I came back from the dead and I'm a ghost. Ooh, just shut up and fight, Vader.
Yeah, right.
Kale McLeishy's backing you up, says that is true. Even in the trench run, Han doesn't shoot Vader down. He guns for his wingmate and it throws him off. You're right. Yeah. I mean, that's
and they don't know who each other is. Like Vader doesn't know who Luke is at this point.
John Galgano. That's where crate dragons come from. Yeah, crate dragons are all just like they're dead Jedi reincarnated. That's what they are.
Love it.
Oh my god, that's awesome. Liberty Timmons says, and then there's the strong female lead. Leia was so different from what we girls were being handed back then, except for Wonder Woman. It's funny you say that, Liberty, because you're 100% correct, and I never even thought about it. Like it's always blown my mind when it's always like, oh, we don't have enough female leads and too many male leads. Like, because I never noticed any of it. I was just like, well, that's the good guy. Like Leia's the good guy. Like she's a hero, and that's why when Rey was the main character of the sequel trilogy and some people were throwing a fit, I was like, I don't get it. It's just a cool character kicking ass. Like, and I've said that in any movie where, there's a strong female lead. And I think, people are correct in saying there's not nearly as many of them as men, obviously. But I just never noticed it because maybe it was how well Leia was written. I just accepted it. To me, it was, also again, I was a little kid. So to me, the whole gender thing didn't matter at all. I was just like, she's a princess. Princesses are powerful. They kick ass. So
yeah.
Okay.
They really didn't like hang a lamppost on, or what is that phrase? I don't know. They didn't call attention to it. Like you said, they just wrote a kick-ass character who happened to be female.
They didn't hang a lamppost off her and a sign and say, I don't even know what saying you were going for.
Look, I'm only a podcaster. I'm not very good at telling stories.
Nice. Oh my God. Yeah, that's a good point, Liberty. Like, but again, something I never really, I never thought of. All right, good point. She says no Bond girl would say, "Get in the garbage chute, flyboy." Yeah, good point. Good point. Yeah, like I said,
Trying to
that's
treat
just,
Chewie like shit, though. I mean, calling him a walking carpet, that was uncalled for.
yeah, that's what he was saying. Actually, they didn't subtitle it in The Force Awakens when she goes Chewie, and he like hugs her. The subtitle was actually, oh, now you want to give me a hug, you bitch. he was still holding a grudge from the walking carpet comment, like 40 years later.
By the way, where's my goddamn medal?
Yeah. Dude, you know what? I still cannot watch that damn medal ceremony at the end without picturing the stupid robot chick and like Hans Olo, and Luke goes, mine just says participant. I can't ever not see that in that scene. I can't not see it, man. And you know what else was interesting about that scene? I always find funny. Like, they're all happy, like they blew up the Death Star. If you go back and watch it, Han gives this huge, awesome smile to Leia, and she just kind of is like, whatever. Like, she totally stones him, dude. Like, she gives Luke a big smile and stuff. She's smiling at Chewie, and then with Han, she's kind of like, yeah, all right, whatever. Like, I found that very interesting.
We got a Bond girl debate going in the chat here. We're out of our depth on that one.
Yeah, we are.
There seems to be a big crossover of Star Wars fans and James Bond fans. I don't know why.
Kale can jump in with that. There we go.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he's gonna have to host that one. I'll have to bow out because I cannot talk Bond.
Oh, Liberty. Kale knows his Bond. Kale says, if I'm mispronouncing this, Kale, I apologize. I haven't seen, I don't think, any Bond movie all the way through. Lois Childs in Moonraker would like to disagree, as would Y. Lin. I disagree with the Bond girl thing immensely. I cannot speak to that. I honestly can't. All I know is that the Bond girls were kind of like, weren't they supposed to be kind of like the pardon my sexism here, like the eye candy of the movie, like just kind of like his, for lack of a better term, like the piece of ass or something for James Bond, or were they actually like part of the story and like heroes and stuff? Like I said, I've never seen one all the way through, so
kind of both. I mean, they did name one Pussy Galore, so you can't tell me that was just coincidence.
Well, yeah, and the one movie's called Octopussy, like, okay, like that, so sorry. Beth Merrick, terrible sexism. Hopefully not directed at us. I didn't mean to, I just, that was my impression. I'm not saying that's how it is. It's just, man, I'm digging a hole apparently. So episode 4 is a really good movie and I like it. And, so yeah, I think with this movie, dude, it's like, I watch it and it's always just fascinating to me, and because of how well it's done and how strongly it set up everything that came after it. Like, you don't see the subsequent movies and all of a sudden episode 4 looks weaker, or the forthcoming lore looks goofy or doesn't make sense, or makes episode 4 not make sense. Like, it is an incredible building block. It is an absolutely incredible building block. And, the thing that's interesting as well to me is that the movie's damn near 50 years old. And if you think about when we were kids, if we're talking about, okay, let's watch a movie that's 50
we're really
years
gonna
old.
Date ourselves now.
Well, dude, I mean, I just said earlier, I'm going to be 48 in like a month. But when we were kids and we said, let's watch a movie that's 50 years old, I mean, you're talking about shit like the Marx Brothers, like we were raised on, black and white, like back when they were like basically just out of being called talkies, for God's sakes, but this is a movie that even kids that are like 6, 7, 8 years old now, they can go back and watch a movie this old and still be like, holy shit, this is amazing. Like, the way that this movie holds up and stands the test of time is such an incredible statement on the quality of the film and the writing and the production. I mean, it really does look better than anything. I mean, it's a blunt statement and it's a little obvious, but that was the thing back then. Like, people were like, what the hell are these special effects? And it really does. I mean, you go try and look at something, I mean, like, for example, the black hole. I love the black hole. Disney's the black hole. But that has a really creepy vibe to me for some reason. It just is weird, but my God, does it look terrible. Like it's campy and it's got some cool stuff in it, but man, when this was supposedly their answer to Star Wars. It didn't come
that's
anywhere.
why my eyes bugged out when you said you liked it.
Yeah, well, I do, but it's like stupid reasons. Like I had a 33 of it, and the pictures of like the evil robots, I forget what they're called. They scared the crap out of me. And it was, the sounds and especially, and dude, think about it. When you're a little kid like me and you're looking at these evil robots that look really, really evil, and giant fireball rolling towards people, and then like the batteries start running out on the record player, so it starts going like this.
Oh God.
Yeah, I mean
it's nightmare fuel.
Yeah, as Dad used to say, it chills your piss. Like, I mean, good Lord, Spencer Jowitz with a very good example. He says, Wizard of Oz. That is an excellent example. And I think it just solidifies my point because movies like this don't come along almost ever. So, I mean, it just doesn't happen. Jeff Caffrey, I never liked the black hole. Always seemed campy. Maybe we should do a black hole episode.
Yeah. And I don't know if George was like quite so prescient to deliberately pull on old things, but he's well on record as saying that this movie kind of plays out like a silent movie. You could mute it and just listen to nothing but the soundtrack and still get a clear picture of what's going on. And that's through the visual language, that's through the soundtrack, all of these things. He pulled on just tried and true visual storytelling tropes to make sure that people knew what was going on. And as a result of making a movie that wasn't too much of its time, except for updating the visuals, he relied on things that just are timeless. And that's why you can watch it almost 50 years on from its release date and still have it come away feeling not like a dated piece of media, but just a timeless piece of media instead.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, to your point about the soundtrack, I mean, that's just, watching it with the soundtrack, but no dialogue and whatnot. I completely agree with that. And it goes back to something I said, I think it was on the last episode with Spencer, where we talked about how the episode 4 soundtrack is the definitive Star Wars soundtrack, because I think more so than any other that came after it, like you can listen to that, and as soon as the music comes on, what's happening on the screen. Like you could picture in your head, like, you're in the desert and stuff like that, and that you're in the space battle, escaping the Death Star and whatnot. And like, it's like, you don't even need the movie to watch the movie in your head if you've seen it enough times, like we have, and like a bunch of people in the chat and our audio viewers. Like if you're listening to the soundtrack, you're kind of watching the movie in your head. So even that plays into how iconic and just incredible this movie really is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the soundtrack, again, like you were saying, it used an orchestra instead of synth and everything else that was the hot new thing at the time, and that's what helped it right there. It gives it a timeless factor because it's using a full symphony orchestra and an original score to tell this story. And I know we've discussed soundtracks in the past, and you're right. Like this has so many iconic tracks in the soundtrack. It does tell the whole story just through the music alone. Like everything builds upon something else to where you can take just the visuals and get the story. You can take just the soundtrack and get the story. Like and then when you pair them together, it's a tour de force. It's incredible the way this all comes together. And to your point, like it doesn't ever really let up. Like there's never a moment in the movie where there's just like nothing happening. Like the absence of a soundtrack in certain scenes actually amplifies it because there's less going on. Yeah. So as paired back as it is, every time they pair back even further, it pulls the viewer in even more.
Yeah. And I think the perfect example is, the trench run at the end, because as they're all fighting and stuff like that, there's no music. It doesn't start back up again until, the guy that misses gets shot down, and and all, they're like, and it's like bringing it, and it's something you almost have to listen for. Like you realize, oh my God, there hasn't been music for a while. So that when the music does kick in, it comes back in, it makes that scene that much more important. Like, oh my God, things just got really real. Like this is dire. It's like the usage of that is so incredible. And Jeff Caffrey is right. Jeff Caffrey's right. He says John Williams is a genius. It's an obvious statement, but a correct statement.
One other thing that's interesting is it must be as a result of like Fox having the distribution rights on the first movie, but like the rendition of all these classic themes, the main theme at the beginning, even the 20th Century Fox, like the audio quality is vastly different and largely inferior. Let's be honest. But when the main theme kicks in, it's so not upbeat, but like faster. It doesn't sound happier, but it moves compared to like, I feel like it's slowed down over time. It's become more of like not a dirge, but it's like revered now. So it takes more time. It's like watching The Undertaker come to the ring, on his debut compared to like WrestleMania 20, where all of a sudden now it's like 15 minutes just for that guy to shuffle his ass to the ring and take his hat off.
Right.
Like it just gets right into the fanfare, and it's a faster tempo, and the whole performance just is more lively because they wanted to hook people right off the bat instead of make it this big celebratory thing. Like, what's coming next. Let's bask in this moment.
Yeah.
It's like, no, man, we're going to hit you in the face. Here we go.
Yeah. It's a great point, man. All right. So discuss Metal Joe, our good buddy Joseph Wren. He has a question. He says, talk about the trench run at the end. First time you saw it, how cool was it? That for me was one of those moments, like I say, because I saw the second half of the movie first. So I basically got the action half of the movie pretty much. Because, once they're in the garbage compactor, after that, there's not really any slow moments unless you want to, consider them sitting in the briefing room talking about what they got to do. But, yeah, I just, Joe, I had the same reaction, the Rebels did, look at the size of that thing. Like, it's like, okay, when they got up close to it, all of a sudden the Death Star looks like you're on the surface of a planet, not just a space station. And, also, how are these little fighters going to fly against that thing? Like they said, how is a stunt fighter going to, I had that, like, how is this even possible? Like, this seems impossible. So the enormity of the situation really hit me. So as they're flying around, I'm going, okay, they're getting shot at with like laser cannons. I was like, oh my God, like, what's going to happen to them? And then all of a sudden the TIE fighters come out and I was like, what the hell are those? What is that noise? Like, so I loved it. It was cool. It was, it was dog fighting in space and I'd never seen anything like that. So
that intro shot to the trench run still gets me every time. Even knowing how it's done actually just heightens it for me instead of like spoiling the mystique. Like that first person perspective where they're diving towards the trench and then they like wobble into the trench and then it smooths out because they're locked on now. Like it doesn't get any better than that. It just doesn't. And the fact that they were able to do that practically and guide a camera into this model to make it look like that is just incredible.
Yeah, it's
just like Beggar's Canyon back home, says David O'Neill. Yep.
Yeah, I think you make an excellent point that, I mean, as the years have gone by, obviously we know more and more about the behind the scenes and how things are done. And you just made an excellent point that when you know all the secrets of how they did this and to watch it, all over again, it's fascinating because you do know what it looks like. And we've seen the shot of the Falcon coming at you and it's just in a model room, on a stick. And a blue background, and nothing but crap around it. Yet on the screen, it's the Millennium Falcon coming right at your face in the middle of space, like like the trench run, like you said, we know how they did it. It's like in a parking lot, and they're blowing things up. Like, man, oh man, jeez.
Yeah, it still blows my mind that like the models never moved, and it was the camera doing all the motion.
Yeah.
Even that doesn't compute to me. I'm like, but wait, I see it. It's flying.
Yeah.
Like, no, stupid.
Yeah.
You're just gullible.
So what was your first impression of the trench scene?
I mean, I loved it from start to finish. The impression that I always get, I know it's basically the entire third act of the movie at that point. I always got the impression watching the movie that it feels like once they escape the Death Star, that could have been roll credits right there. Like it felt like a conclusion right there, just getting off the thing. And then to have to wheel right back around and now we got to attack that thing. Holy crap. Like that was an amazing third act that almost felt like a movie unto itself.
Yeah. Dude, it's funny because you've been on record as saying like, you know, that you don't think that last bit of the film is even needed, like that they could have just stopped after they rescued the princess. And yet, you know, here we are talking about how awesome it is. So,
well, yeah, like you said, the movie is kind of nonstop. There's always something happening. And you thought that the tension of being on the Death Star was the worst part. Being outside the Death Star is even worse. Oh, and by the way, they're going to blow up everyone, you know, waiting around to see if you can do this.
Yeah.
So,
but
all of the above was incredible.
That's
what was okay. So we've really been talking about the trench run a lot. So what is the scene for you that absolutely encapsulates this movie?
Oh man. Wow, that is a really good question. It's okay. See, this is difficult because when I think of this movie, I always think about Han Solo. So, but would that be what encapsulates this movie for me? You know, I don't know.
First scene in your head when someone says episode 4, what comes to mind?
I picture Tatooine. I don't know what part of it, but I picture Tatooine. But
Same.
It's weird. I guess it's because that's where it all started or something. I couldn't tell you why, but just my first emotional, visceral reaction is, you know, Tatooine.
Yeah. For me, it's the cantina.
Okay.
I think that's everything. You get the droids being kicked out, so there's a story there. You get introduced to Han and Chewie. You see Obi-Wan bust out the lightsaber for the first time. You see that Luke is completely in over his head. Like so many character defining moments are right there in that scene, including the presence of the Empire, because of course they get ratted out immediately thereafter.
Yeah, I think one scene that always has like a weird feeling for me, and I guess weird's not the right word, but the garbage compactor scene, because I was walking in, finding a seat, and I was looking up, going, "What the hell is going on? Like I said earlier, like what are these dudes wearing? Like what is, you know, what are, I don't get it. Like what the hell? I was intrigued right away because I'm like, they're in a bunch of garbage. And then next thing I know, they're about to get squished. I was like, what the hell? Like, yeah, I think, you know, people in the chat are, yeah, they're backing you up on the cantina thing. All right. David O'Neill says, for me, I think it's got to be Obi-Wan versus Vader up to Luke screaming.
Also a really good one. Yeah.
Jeff Caffrey says lots of shit goes down in the cantina. Yeah, that's difficult, dude. I don't know. I think it's because I've never really thought about it before. But I mean, there's a lot of cool things that happen. You know, when the Millennium Falcon's flying around blowing up TIE fighters, I mean, that's like, you know, them, you know, in the rotating chairs with the guns and stuff. I was like, hell yeah, dude. Like that was cool. And, you know, like I said, for me, anytime Han Solo was on the screen, I was just enthralled. It's just, that character grabbed me immediately. So that's what I think of Tatooine. And I think of Han Solo. And the rest of it is just, you know, again, I have this huge sense of nostalgia. Like something imprinted on me when I saw it as a 4-year-old kid. And it's, like I have a really emotional connection to episode 3. And this one, I have a very personal, very little kid reaction to it. I remember being absolutely mesmerized and blown away. And, if you would have gone back then and told me you're going to love this for the rest of your life more than anything else, I would have gone, I could see that happening. Like I was that into it immediately. You know what I mean? Like I was.
Do any of the inconsistencies with future movies bother you?
No. And I think, and you know why? I think it's because, I think it was Beth was talking about the special effects and how, the human error kind of adds to the charm of it and makes it a little more real in a way. I think that the inconsistencies do that as well. It's not perfect. It's not perfected. They screw things up here and there. But that's, to me, that's almost become part of the story. The inconsistencies now have been so, raked over the coals that it's not an inconsistency anymore. It's just part of the story. It's just a goofy part of the story.
Yeah.
So
like we hate the holiday special because it was weird and completely inconsistent and awful in a lot of ways. But this is, the early days of the franchise when they were just experimenting and finding out like what worked and what didn't. And this is the very first thing they ever did. So anything that doesn't line up with the way things were further codified in the future, like, oh, the lightsabers are so slow, or why does Ponda Baba's arm bleed when it's cut with a lightsaber? And
yeah,
I don't care. It's just cool because they were taking big swings and seeing what worked. I love it.
I completely agree. I mean, it's something we had never seen, and it's so resonant to this day, and it doesn't age. The other movies all look better, and there's bigger scenes and all of that stuff, but A New Hope is still, it's one of those things where no matter who you are, you can look at this movie and say, I understand why this is such a big deal, and also why this spawned the universe that it has.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something like the prequels where you watch it at first and you're like, oh, people are like, oh, this is crap, but now all of a sudden they're revered. It's not, some 80s movie where you first watch it and you're like, this is amazing, and then you go back and watch it, now it's campy and cheesy. That's not the case. I mean, this just is episode 4, and the way you saw it as a kid, you can still see it today. And as an adult, you go back to it and you see it in a different way, and nothing pokes holes in it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just absolutely such a perfectly done movie all the way around. The soundtrack and the visuals, and Jeff Caffrey brings up something we didn't even touch on. Ben Burtt's sound design really sold those characters and the effects. And it's, it was back to another point that you made. It was really ballsy to not use modern sound effects, like something like Battlestar Galactica was doing or something like that. They went with old school stuff. They made it look dingy and shitty instead of shiny and, futuristic and everything. It was, the conscious decisions to use old school stuff and ground it in reality was unbelievably brilliant. And it's so fun to look back at it and realize how dangerous of a decision that was and how brilliant it was in hindsight. I mean, just think about how, like, it's just fascinating, like how Lucas, in the face of everything, was like, no, I'm doing it this way. Like, I believe in this much. It's, even if nobody else likes it, I'm making a movie that I think is going to kick ass. And it ended up changing the world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just unbelievable, Spencer Jones.
And all the behind the scenes stuff. Oh God, we're quoting Robot Chicken.
Yeah, he says, "What the hell is an aluminum falcon?" Just so you know, Spencer, the car before what I have
It's a
now,
bar trivia team that has never lost. That's what an aluminum falcon is.
That is right. You are looking at the two main members of the Aluminum Falcons, the Star Wars trivia team, and we are 10-0. High five through the camera, AJ. Don't do a high five with me. There you go. Yeah, don't mess up your focus. Yeah, my Mazda before this one, Spencer, I named it the Aluminum Falcon, and my current one is a CX-5. So the license plate says CX Wing. So I did that on purpose. Yep, I'm smart. Yeah, so this is perfect. This is perfect. Beth Merrick, I thought it was a Spaceballs pun. No, Beth, if you want to see some amazing Star Wars humor, go watch the 3 Family Guy specials, obviously, and then watch the Robot Chicken. There's 3 Robot Chicken specials, dude. They're only like 25 minutes a piece, but holy shit, are they funny? They are so. Another thing. Spencer Jones. My trivia team name is My Couch Pulls Out. Nice. The other Robot Chicken one, AJ, that I can never get out of my head is, shut down all the garbage mashers on the detention level. And then 3PO going, shut them all down. And then Vader's standing in the kitchen scraping a plate into the sink, and he goes to flip the garbage compactor, nothing happens. And he goes, damn it, right. that was fish. All right, so we've been going 90 minutes, so let's kind of get to our final thoughts here. David O'Neill says, what do you say to the people, and surprisingly there are a lot of people, who just don't understand Star Wars, just watching this movie and don't understand what's happening? Yeah, what do we say? I would say watch this movie. And then, imagine that the other ones are, there's more happening to the eye and the ear as they get later, in chronological order release. So this is the basis of it. It's an interesting, fun story. And then you get more of it, only bigger as time goes on. So, I mean, what would you say, AJ?
I would say that we've discussed previously, like, what's the order to watch these in? Is it supposed to be episode order or release order or machete order? Episode 4 is always the starting point for me. You get that chronological stuff out the way. Don't start with Phantom Menace. Start with this one. If someone's not sure if they're going to like Star Wars, because amazingly there are people out there, even grown people, who've never seen it. Mm-hmm. You got to start with this one. This is absolutely the one that has all the things. And if anything hooks them in this movie, there's more of it somewhere else in the saga.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any better way to encapsulate it than that. Like, George picked the perfect slice of this larger story to roll out the gate with, and then knew exactly where it was going from there in the strokes that mattered, and then, painted in the numbers as he, got to those episodes.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, I just think, man, oh man, what a blast this movie is. Like I said, and it was really cool for me because, oddly enough, when I bought the Harmony editions, I didn't put them in. I got them. I was like, I'm going to watch these, and I actually never did. I put them on my collectible shelf, and I kind of I was like, okay, I always meant to and never did. And so getting to sit down and watch that version was really awesome. Because, I mean, it really brought me back to being a kid. Mm-hmm. Because it still has, when the land speeder's going across the desert, like where they had to smudge the ground underneath, that's how they got, they hid the wheels. Like, it's still got that in there. And, so the aliens, some of them are just really janky. And, it's just such a fun movie. And it always just makes me feel like I'm a little kid again. And in the very best ways. And, to kind of bring it all full circle, I think of Dad screwing up that movie time, and I don't mean this in a bad way. I know Mom was there too, but for me, it was like I remember Dad like, hey, we're going to the movies. And I'm sure Mom probably didn't give a damn about Star Wars, but, me and Dad, we watched Star Wars. And it's one of the things that, anytime I think about him, I think about that. Like, Dad took me to Star Wars, after, for me, it's, Dad took me to Star Wars. Dad taught me how to play golf, and Dad, was cool enough to, take me to see Indiana Jones 17 times in the theater, in 1981 when Raiders came out. So, those
and he at least respected Star Wars enough that he wanted to go see Force Awakens when it came out. So there was the full circle where he took you to see A New Hope, then just called Star Wars.
Yeah.
And, then 2015 rolls around and we take him. Was it just me or both of us took him to see The Force Awakens?
You did. I did not get to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So clearly he was still a fan even that long into the future. So we kind of indoctrinated him over time.
Our fandom rubbed off, even though he didn't want it to.
Yeah. They won't shut up about it. I guess I might as well watch it.
Right. So did he like The Force Awakens? Close with that.
He did. He really did.
Awesome.
But he also picked up on the fact that it was very similar to this movie.
Hey, Mama Pam, get the fuck out of my chat. There we go.
We're gaining traction when we start having to block people.
There we go. We had a spam porn bot. She said, hello and blessings. And I was about to bring it up on screen. But cool. And then it was check out my feet pic, OnlyFans, blah, blah, blah. No, that's okay. That's gross and ridiculous. We've already had our sexism for the night, Mama Pam. We don't need some OnlyFans trollop in here selling feet pics. Okay? I already called the Bond girls like eye candy and James Bond's pieces of ass. That's bad enough for one show. We don't need OnlyFans accounts for feet.
Word of the day, trollop. I love it.
Yes. All right, so real quick, before I have a quick recommendation, kind of off topic, but for any of you guys who are gamers out there, I know I'm probably a few months behind the curve on this, if not a year. I forget when it came out, but I just started playing Hogwarts Legacy on PS5, and it is a complete blast. I am loving it. It is super fun.
Wow.
A little frustrating here and there. The world's so damn big, it's hard to find some stuff, but it's super fun. And, well, now
you know how Voldemort felt when he was looking for Harry.
Very well played. Very well played. All right, man. Well, that's going to do it for another episode of the Nerf Herder Council. I want to thank all you guys for tuning in to the show. Real quick, before we get out of here, AJ, why don't you tell everybody about our Patreon page?
Yeah, we are on Patreon at patreon.com/NHC podcast. We've got all of our shows going up there for the time being until I sort out WordPress, probably on a new host because GoDaddy's not helping me at all. So all of our shows are posted there in audio format 4 days after on the Sunday following these Wednesday broadcasts. If you, however, shoot us a little bit of money on Patreon, and I mean a little bit, like $1 gets the job done, you will get that audio on Friday instead. We also have some bonus content coming up. We have discussed doing watch-alongs and or commentary tracks. So that will be exclusive to Patreon members only. We've got some other things in the works as well. But I do want to give a special shout out to our buddies Mark Thrasher and Joseph Wren for joining at the ever prestigious $3 a month level. And that's what $3 gets you, is the early audio access and the shout outs on the air here on the show. We've got other tiers and ideas in mind. But yes, everything Nerf Herder Council right now is at patreon.com/NHC podcast. But that's not the only place they can find us, right, JT?
No. You definitely can find us on Facebook and YouTube. We don't really use social media very well, but you can find us there. As we had the banner showing earlier in the show, if you want to hit us up directly, you can send us a Facebook message or email us at nerfherdercouncil@gmail.com if you've got thoughts, show topic ideas, anything you want to throw our way. You can catch us there. And as always, guys, we are brought to you by Audible. Go to audibletrial.com/NHC for your 30-day trial and a free audiobook download. If you are watching on YouTube, either our page or the Virtual Cantina Network's page, click that like button, click that subscribe button, and smash that notification bell so that you are notified every time we go live. If you would like to get customizable Nerf Herder Council swag, just go to shop.nerfherdercouncil.com. If you would like to get Virtual Cantina Network swag, you can go to tpublic.com/user/virtual-cantina. We are here every other Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at all those beautiful locations. We also have a Twitch page if you're into that sort of thing, so you can tune into us there. Our next show is going to be on Valentine's Day. So it's going to be on Wednesday, February 14th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What was that episode that we did wasn't it with Chris Mocked? It was like a version of Marry Fuck Kill or something. Didn't we do that? Like, what the hell was that? That one, man, oh man,
we did that one a while ago. Yeah,
that was.
We also have a Raylo episode, so we have a few love centric episodes back in the archives.
We do, way back in the archives. Hopefully, those aren't sexist either. But yeah, I remember that. I remember that could have turned out horribly. The Marry Kill type of thing, but it actually didn't. We got. I don't know how we pulled that off, but
those archived shows, by the way, you're going to have to go to nhcpodcast.com. Those are still up and running there. Well, actually, I don't know. Might have to repost those on Patreon. I hate technology. Anyway,
there's our Patreon.
If you want to hear those, just hit us up.
Our Patreon is now just buying our old shit. There we go. That'd be amazing. So
we wouldn't be the first.
No. All right, guys. Well, once again, we will see you on Wednesday, February 14th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Much thanks to everybody in the chat and your kind wishes. For our dad, we're definitely going to miss him. Huge influence on both of us. And again, we wouldn't have Star Wars if it wasn't for him taking me to see it. So, Beth Merrick and Liberty Timmons, Jeff Caffrey, our excellent buddy Cale McLeish, Spencer Jowitz, Discuss Metal Joe, Joseph Wren, all you guys, our cousin Chris, thank you all so much for tuning in. We love when you guys take part in the show and help drive the conversation with us. And it's just a blast hanging out with an awesome community of fellow nerds like ourselves. So we will see you guys in 2 weeks. Until next time, I am your host, JT, at Dog Pound Jedi. He is AJ.
At Drake Adams, 579.
And we will catch you next time.
Bolts is never gonna get us past that blockade.
This bucket's got a few surprises left in her. Plus me and Chewie are on it. Ain't that right, Chewie?
Hell yeah, you my nerf herder.
You my nerf herder.